Okay, Nicole, I told you last show that we would answer your question because we didn't know anything about it or weren't up to par on it last show. But Nicole said this last time. Can you help me, Steve, understand the net neutrality debate at hand? Is there a spiritual victory or loss to be had?
Yeah, Nicole, I went and looked stuff up on that. I had some idea about what it was, what it was about, but I didn't have enough to really answer the question. Net neutrality has to do with access to different websites on the internet, and I'm going to try to make this as not boring as possible because I thought it was boring. But basically, what happens is when you get on the internet, you're going through an internet service provider. That's what an ISP is, internet service provider. And so these guys are basically like companies that have pipelines to the internet. And what happens with that is you got to think of pipes. So when you hear about bandwidth and all of that kind of stuff, basically what happens is the more people that are connecting to the internet, the slower things can go because of data transfer and that kind of stuff. It's like water going through a pipe. And so you can only get so much water through a pipe. And the internet net neutrality issue has to do with federal regulations that they're putting on ISPs, internet service providers, making them give equal access to everyone on the internet, which sounds like a good thing. But the problem with that is, from like a user's point of view, there are different things that I do on the internet. And so some of the things that I do are looking at my email, for example. And some people are confined to that. Other people look at email and they look at their Facebook accounts and that kind of stuff. And what that does is it's kind of like more water going through the pipe. And then other people do use Netflix. And when you're talking about things like Netflix, you're talking about streaming 4K video through the internet. And so that's lots of water going through the pipe. So email is minimal. When you're talking about video streaming and playing games, there's a lot of data that's going through that. And what internet service providers would like to do is they would like to basically make money. And so, obviously, if you use more in everything else, you should pay more. And so that's where it is from their point of view. From a point of view of a consumer, I get Netflix and I've used that and I get that pretty cheaply, and I can do stuff on YouTube and I do that pretty cheaply. I don't have to pay more than, for example, if all you ever did was do email, you're paying the same amount as I would pay if I am doing Netflix and I'm playing games and I'm doing YouTube and using all the stuff that costs a lot. And the rules for that came into place in 2015, and that was an Obama thing. And so basically, the Obama administration told ISPs that you can't change charges, for example, based on data transfer. And so that's what net neutrality means. It's the idea that everybody basically pays the same, and whether I'm doing games and watching videos or just doing email, I'm paying the same for my access. And companies that are using the internet are paying. They're not. For example, an ISP, if I'm a guy who is putting up a web page, for example, they may charge me a certain amount for that service. But if I'm Netflix, then what I'm doing is I'm streaming lots of stuff over your internet service provider. And so basically what the net neutrality laws do is they put caps, they have a structure there that keep ISPs from charging a whole bunch to Netflix, which would be passed on to their customers versus paying a lot less for just doing a web page or whatever. And so that's what the argument's all about. And again, hopefully I made that kind of clear. I don't see, I'm not really totally worried about the whole thing, as far as my perspective. But that's just my perspective. And if the rules get changed, then what's going to happen is the rules are going to go back to what they were before 2015. And so if you're worried about the internet going backwards to 2014 and the kind of access that you had in 2014, then I'd be worried about it. And that's kind of where that's at. And so from what I can see, if ISP, internet service providers, start charging all kinds of crazy prices, or not allowing certain people to get to certain places because they slow down service, then what they'll get is a bunch of people screaming at them from the internet, and that kind of helps businesses to do the right thing. So
I think on the face of that, the term kind of catches people, and they're like, wait a minute, are they trying to regulate free speech on the internet and stuff like that? But like you said, really it's just a big company thing, at least right now.
Yeah, it's kind of like one group of people want to treat ISPs like they're like it's a utility. And so, for example, we don't have 5 water companies in our town. We've got one water company, and we don't have 5 power companies in our town. And so you don't see 5 different telephone poles. And so there's regulation on the power companies because basically it's a monopoly.
Right.
And so if your power company came up to you and said, you know what, we've just decided to increase your power rates by 400%. We've only got one power company, and they could do that, and we'd have no choice. You have to have power. And so in that instance, government regulation is something that these guys do because you have an in-place monopoly. I can't go someplace else for power. Right. I can't go someplace else for water. And so there's people looking at the internet like that. And so if it is like that, then what's got to happen is you have in effect a monopoly, and people need it, and there's only so much that can come through the pipe, and you shouldn't be able to outrageously charge people.
Sure.
But on the other hand, if you're looking at the internet like it's a marketplace, because you do have a number of internet service providers, then what's going to happen is
depending on where you live.
Yeah, depending on where you live, what's going to happen is market competition is going to do stuff, or people's outrage is going to do stuff to do that. And so basically, when it comes down to it, it's a government rule thing versus a market freedom thing. And there are sometimes when market freedom is not practical, like in the case of a power company. And so you come down on that, on whatever side you want to come down on. So, right. But I don't see it. If an internet service provider started deciding that they weren't going to allow me to get to a certain website or something like that, then there have been times when these guys have done that in the past, and the outrage that came from people just kind of backed them down.
Well, you hear little rumblings and different things, and just depending on the topic, on YouTube and also Facebook, where they kind of go after people and certain organizations for posts and stuff, and then you'll have a backlash, and then they'll kind of open the accounts again. But
right. It
seems to be a ongoing battle, the regulators versus the freedom of the press. And
yeah, and so I can see it from both sides. And when they put the regulations on in 2015, a lot of people had a fit over it. I remember that. Didn't pay much attention to it because I don't care. And then now they're talking about taking those regulations away, and now other people are having fits about it. And right. It's like, I don't know. I think those things work out. Any time that the government's getting involved in things, that perks my ears up, and I start worrying about it, and in on some levels. And so, but again, when I'm looking at it from this point of view, there can be abuses both ways. And so if they take the regulations away, it'll just be back to what it was pre-2015, and there may be some problems. And if they regulate it more, then there may be some problems. And I'm just going to stand back and watch how it all works out. So
okay, I got a couple more government questions since we're on the topic.
I'm kind of neutral on net neutrality.
Nope. No pun intended.
Yeah.
All right, Steve. Are you good?
Yeah.